Welcome to the Do Life Well podcast. Join your host, Gavin Merwin, and his guests as they explore the nature of doing life well. Now, let's dive in.
Welcome back to another episode of the Do Life Well podcast. I'm your host, Gavin Merwin. Jumping in today with a good friend of mine, Chris Barker. Thanks for coming.
Hey, man, I'm glad to be here.
For sure. It's interesting. We were talking before we started. We're talking to each other, but talking to you too. So it's it's always a little weird.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, for newer guests, Do Life Well podcast, something I felt just led to do. Proverbs 3 says we're to live life well. And that means a lot of different things. We have conversations around health and wellness and fatherhood and being a business person and just all the things, that go into life. And today's episode, don't let the title scare you. Men need to suffer.
That's right.
But it's true. Men do have a need to suffer more, I think, than women do. Everybody needs to be uncomfortable. But yeah, super excited to jump in. Chris and I are just going to have a conversation about what that means to us, and hopefully you guys will get some benefit from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was telling Chris, we went for a run earlier, which was fun.
Yeah.
So we did what we were encouraging you to do, got out there and suffered a little bit. One of the things that I did recently was went on a hike and a camping trip to Pine Mountain. Chris has heard a decent amount about this already, but felt spurred to have this conversation sort of out of that experience. Probably, months before I actually went and did it. I just had the thought, man, it'd be so fun to go spend a weekend by yourself. Obviously you got a lot going on, work and kids and life, and I'm not a fan of the word busy, but you just got a lot going on, and so you're just desiring the quietness of the woods. But what I wasn't really expecting was the suffering aspect of it, to where it was so I hiked 12 miles, 40-pound bag on my back over 2 days, stayed the night in the woods by myself in a tent, and it was just great. But I started on Pine Mountain Trail, which is up near Columbus, mile 23, and the first day I hiked back to 6 miles backwards. And I remember mile 3 in-ish of that, where it was almost just this euphoric mental place, that I got to. And it's funny because it's I've told this story to a few people, and it's I was telling you earlier, you can see in people's eyes whether they get it or not. You know what I mean? Whether they've been there themselves before or haven't, and that's okay, Part of what, the reason I want to share all this is to encourage everybody to get there.
Right. Because
it's important for them to. But yeah, it's just you're trudging along and you're hurting and you're suffering. Again, I'm not talking about injuring yourself.
Right.
Or David Goggins type. Yeah. There's elements of that are good, but just pushing yourself to the point where you get to that place mentally where you're just having all these clear thoughts and all these revelations about things you see in your life and people and, fatherhood and just all the stuff. And it's the way I've described it to people is it's the reward mentally for you being willing to push your body to that point.
Right.
So jump in, share a little bit about your experience with that type of stuff.
I fought it for a long time. And I think it's just something that's a part of everybody's life, and it's your attitude and how you look at it. You can complain about it or you can embrace it. And
sure.
I feel there's a level of enlightenment on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah. And share a little bit about yourself. Obviously father, husband, business person, past Marine. I don't know if you say past or present or whatever, but hey, not active duty Marine.
Yeah.
But no guest to suffering.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I've learned a lot of that from you even, I was telling a friend of ours, I was the concept when you first hear it's kind of crazy, and you're just man, that's a little much,
Yeah.
But then when you go through it yourself and you're willing to you know, again, like we're not talking about hurting yourself or injuring yourself or being stupid about it, but when you go through it, just such benefit comes from it. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a high level of mental clarity, you realize the things that are unimportant that you've just been carrying around.
Yeah.
Like all that other nonsense just goes away.
Sure.
When you get there. And, I'm no stranger to suffering, like you said. And I never really knew it. I'm recently, you know, have found my faith within the past couple years and have really changed from how I used to be. But my time in the Marine Corps taught me so much about life that I'm still unpacking to this day. But, you know, the thing that comes to my mind is in training, School of Infantry, you have to do these ruck marches, like you kind of along the lines of what you were doing backpacking, and on the 12-mile ruck when I was at the School of Infantry, my first one, I failed it. I quit. I gave up on myself.
Sure.
And, you know, I had to pay the price for that too. And the Marine Corps didn't care. They literally made me, I had to go back and do it the next week.
Sure,
you know?
sure.
That taught me right there, you know, that I was capable of more. I did it the next week, no problem. I was just like I was in my head. I got so inside my head and worried about the pain and all this, and I thought I was suffering, but I really wasn't.
Sure.
Because the funny thing is, that little incident was so insignificant as far as the suffering I would have to endure in the future.
Sure.
You know, once you get to the fleet, it's a completely another level, you know. But it's a mantra in the infantry that we use, and it's embrace the suck. And you just have to grab onto it, because it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
It's part of the trade, and you're going to be out there in it. And so you learn to embrace it and get comfortable in that area. And I don't really like the word comfort, but you have to get comfortable suffering, in your suffering.
Sure. Yeah. Well, no, and I think it's like we talked about, like, I don't know, I'm thankful for the life I live, but we do live such comfortable lives. We're not getting that like our ancestors did just by nature of going about it. I mean, you know, you think even when I say ancestors, I mean, even 100 years ago, you know, Great Depression and, you know, mostly agrarian, and you're out on the farm. And so, I mean, you're out there, you're being uncomfortable, and we don't have any of that. And so it's like you have to, I think, give space to intentionally put yourself there, because, you know, I don't know, we get lazy and our comfortability, and it's like, if you don't go force yourself, like you had to, I mean, the Marines didn't have a choice, you know what I mean? It was just what you were doing every day. But for us and you now, like, you have to give space for it, you know?
I fell off hard after my enlistment ended, and I came back here. I got up to 220 pounds. I was big. I'm a short guy, and you know, that's where I had a realization. You know, you hit the bottom. You think just one day something magic's gonna happen, it's gonna be all great, but it's actually the opposite. One day something so bad happens where you're at the bottom and you have to make a choice. And so I started my journey, fitness journey. But the other thing was, I wasn't just fat. I was depressed and suicidal and all these things. And it was just adding up, kept adding up. And I just had to start making baby steps. Like, take it really small, break it down.
Now, for those of us that don't have the military experience, because that's unique, I mean, I'm saying, like, the unique lesson you learned through that, like, I guess, what took you there? You know what I mean? Like, what path brought you through that? Because, I mean, I feel like just being friends, you know, you're able to pull on that a pretty good bit. That experience, I mean, to, you know, push into exercise and do hard things and stuff like that. And then coming out of it, like, how frequently do you find yourself going back there mentally? Does that make sense?
Oh, bro, every day.
There's
no escape from it, man. Like, I feel like in the journey, things don't necessarily get easier. You just, like, that baseline raises, and it's just like not a problem. It's not so much of a problem anymore, I guess. I hope I answered that right. But Yeah. I think that everything nowadays is pushing you for convenience and comfort. It's just like our life, and everybody is so easy to go that way. That's the comfortable way, the warm way, but it's just too much, man. Like you said, throughout all of history, no one even they didn't really struggle with depression that bad or suicidal thoughts because they were so busy trying to survive. They couldn't worry about that. You know, they were getting that physical exertion and everything like that. But
and I guess that's a benefit, you know, obviously. I mean, you know, we talk a lot about exercise and things of that nature in this vein, but it's like there's a real mental benefit from exerting yourself physically.
Right.
You know, and it's like you have a stressful day, you don't want to go to the gym. It's the best thing you can do is go to the gym.
Right.
You know, and push yourself through. And I know it's interesting too, like even doing stuff together. Like we talked about this morning, the run for me was easier being together than when I'm doing it by myself.
100%.
And it's like, you know, I've done some CrossFit competitions, and it's like the team partner workouts are so much easier to me than doing it by yourself. Like, and two, I mean, the other side of that, I guess, is like, because you mentioned baseline, is you're competing with yourself and like being at peace with that too. Because, you know, I had a guy tell me one time, like he starts describing what he was doing for a workout. And he knows, like, doing CrossFit, I mean, that can be kind of intense. I mean, it's on the, like, I'm not trying to brag, you know what I'm saying? But it's on the more intense end of, like, exercise. And then he, like, downplayed his what he was doing because he knows what I do. And I'm like, what is that? Stop it. Like, it's not a competition. Like, you're competing against you, and I'm competing against me, you know? But it is, like, tough, especially, like, going through things like in CrossFit, we have the CrossFit Open, and it's like, the whole world is doing it in the CrossFit world. And you've got like the owner of our gym is very elite. I mean, and he's going on and, you know, and so you're doing it with guys like that. And it's hard to look at them and like, man, I got so far to go. Like, man, I'm not there. But then you compare yourself to the rest of the planet. And you're like, I got it going on, you know, I am more in better shape. And so, again, I think like letting all that fall to the side and like you said, finding your baseline.
That's right.
And then constantly pushing yourself to increase that baseline. And it's interesting because it's not just physical either, you know. And I was listening to Andrew Huberman podcast. It actually was with David Goggins. It's been a couple months ago, I think. I forget. But anyway, they were talking about like they literally have discovered this part of your brain that when you do things that are uncomfortable, it grows. And when you do things that are comfortable, it shrinks. And so it's like, if you love taking an ice bath, that's not growing that part of your brain. Like it has to be uncomfortable, and you have to be willing to do hard things to grow that part of your brain. And that directly correlates with willpower. And our ability to be disciplined and things of that nature.
I think willpower is definitely like what I would say, or is how I heard it from them. Like it builds it up, you know, and through doing things that you don't want to do is like how I would say it. Like everyone knows this. Whenever that pops into your mind, man, I really don't want to go on a run today, or I really don't want to do the dishes right now. That is exactly when you need to do it. That's the most important time to do it. And that's when you grow that little thing inside your brain. And it just all goes together. But I feel like it's a fine line, or you know, a double-edged sword, or however you want to say it, where I definitely am my biggest competitor, and like the only person I compare myself to. I've learned that social media is like poison, bro. But and you can go too deep into it, but there's also a good side of that where you can see what other people are doing and add to your own repertoire and things like that I love. But like deep down, it's always just competing with how I was yesterday. And that might be, you know, too much for some people. So really you should set a standard or something, or a baseline to get started, and then just go off of that. And maybe do it every week or every month. Don't focus on every day, because you might be 1 pound heavier or 1 pound less. You know, on your journey. But
well, and I think too, like at our core, men are warriors. You know what I mean? And it's like society's not necessarily set up for that. And so again, it's like a part of the reason why I went on a hike and did what I did. Like, you know, it's funny, like my mother-in-law's like, what are you gonna do? And I'm like, nothing. That's the
Right.
point. Like, all we ever do all the time is stuff, you know. I don't want anything to do, you know, which it's
Exactly.
funny. It's interesting. Like, I was expecting to have all this downtime, and it was like, by the time I got there, it took me 2 hours to set up my camp and get the fire. And you know what I'm saying? So really, I actually didn't have a lot of downtime, you
Yeah.
know, and then it's cold and you don't sleep good. But even through all that, it's like, someone asked me, they're like, so is this like your new thing? Like, is this a new hobby? Like, you're going to start backpacking? And I was like, no, I don't think so. I mean, it was a ton of fun.
Yeah.
I said, but what I can confidently tell you is anytime I feel myself stuck, anytime I feel myself like in a rut or draggy, that's 100% where I'm going. Like, maybe not there, but I'm going somewhere because I know for me personally, it was like a very mentally stripping exercise
Right.
that, like, just like you said, tore away all the just
Yes.
nonsense, because you're literally just one foot in front of the other. And it's interesting because, like, I listen to music mostly whenever I exercise. Well, it was like vast majority of that hike, I didn't listen to anything,
Right.
you know. And then you just stop and you're like, silence. I mean, you can't hear anything. You know what I mean? There's no cars, no people, and it's just like, you know, I don't know. You're almost jealous of like when they did used to live that way.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just,
Simple times.
yeah, you know, and again, like, I'm thankful for it. I mean, obviously I'm in technology for work. I love it. Like, I'm all for, I mean, I scare people. I say, I want a Neuralink, put it in my head, connect me to the computer. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like,
You go
I'm
for it, buddy.
I'm down, I'm down for all that. But at the same time too, like, at our core being, there's something about being uncomfortable and being outdoors, and, you know, I don't know. It was just a really rewarding thing.
Yeah, I just feel like our minds are so amazing, bro. Like, we don't even have half of it unlocked, really. But there's so much going on around us that our brains are aware of, our
Yeah,
senses are
sure.
aware of, the fast cars, the
Yeah.
lights, the signs, the boom, 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 work, work, work.
Yeah.
And, you know, getting away from all that is so important. And you found that out
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
recently, man. And it's something that even myself, I've slipped away from. And
Yeah.
it's important to do these things regularly and
Yeah.
just unload, because you're carrying around a bunch of weight that you
Yeah.
don't even realize, just because your mind is so good at
Yeah.
putting it back there.
Yeah. No, again, it's like a mental stripping away, you know, and like benefits of it. I mean, because we've hit on some, because, you know, like the titles "Men Need to Suffer,"
Right.
and like we're talking about how we do it, but then like if I'm listening, you're like, why though?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
why
yeah,
go
yeah.
through it? I mean, obviously we've talked about it some, but it is like it de-stresses you, and it
Mm-hmm.
lessens anxiety and stuff like that. And it's funny. We were talking about driving here from the run. So I'm driving to Pine Mountain, and I'm in the left lane, and this car comes flying up behind me, and I could have easily just gotten over, and I'm like, he made me so mad I refused to. And then like I brake check him and flick him off as he goes by, you know, like, and like he leaves, and I was so relaxed ahead of that happening. And then I'm so anxious and angry, and I'm just
man.
like, he just got me, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm up there on that mountain, you know, hiking along and like thinking, and like I'm in that mental state of just like clarity, you know. And it like hits me like, you did that to yourself. Like that whole situation you created, like all
man.
that stress, all that anxiety, you know. And so driving back, I'm like, and you know, me and you were driving back, and this car's like riding my rear end, and I'm like, I don't care, you can go around.
whatever,
Like,
bro.
I was you the other day, you know what I mean? But I'm not now. I'm just trying to be chill, you know.
Yeah, man.
But I guess I'm saying, like, if you don't give space in your life to go push yourself, you don't have that thought of like, what's it really matter? Like, there's all these small things we worry about that.
Yeah.
You know, me included, like, you know, again, like, you don't do things like that and push yourself. Again, you need to suffer.
Right.
You know what I mean? In a controlled environment, you're not
Yes.
hurting yourself,
Voluntary.
but it's important to.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I just feel like the voluntary suffering definitely makes the involuntary suffering way better.
Yeah.
You know, it just prepares you. It's like you're ready. You know, for when the life happens, your pipe busts on your house, you're in poverty, you know, your car breaks, whatever. You know, your situation could always be worse.
sure. Yeah.
I promise.
Yeah. 100%.
And, but it's so important to do the voluntary suffering, because it builds it up. Just like all those other little things build up on the back of your mind, that voluntary suffering builds up. It builds your willpower.
Yeah.
And then when those things happen, it's nothing, man. It's like water off a duck's back.
That's right. No, and it's like, and it's just, you know, me and a friend of ours, we were reading James, you know, and you're talking about like, don't live life on a roller coaster. And you're like, how many people live life on the roller coaster? of just ups and downs. And it's like, God's great. My water pipe busted. My life's horrible. Like, I got a promotion. You know what I'm saying? And you're just like, he just so wants us to just be steady, you know? And I think like doing the things we're talking about helps you, you know, nobody's perfect, obviously. Like you have emotions. And I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it was a guy, and he was talking about, like, I don't know, he was a software engineer, and he's talking about like the key to happiness and things of that nature. But the important piece was, he said, we can't control the thoughts that hit our brain. Like, it just happens. And he said he had trained himself within 7 seconds. Every time he's gotten it down to 7 seconds, negative thoughts hits his brain. He's got it wrestled down and deleted. 7 seconds. I'm like, I'm not 7 seconds. You know what I mean? I'll just wallow on stuff and think about it and all. But I mean, there's just something to be said for like when you're doing hard things. I mean, I guess mostly physical is what we're talking about, but even mental and things of that nature.
I just feel like that's the easiest way to explain it.
For sure. It's like you say though, when that involuntary suffering happens, like something bad happens, you're not as roller coastery, right? I guess you know what I mean.
You're able to stay, man.
Exactly,
or at least realize where you're at and be cool with it. It's really not that bad. I've been in worse situations. We're gonna get through this. It's not gonna last forever. I mean, those are things I tell myself, like, it ain't gonna last forever.
That's right. Yeah,
it will be over soon.
That's right.
Maybe not soon, but it will end.
That's right. It's not forever.
Right.
Yeah.
There's only one thing.
And physically too. I mean, it's like, we were saying, like, you're out there and you're like, all I gotta do is make the next mile. And then make the next mile, and like you're in pain, and it's like it's painful and it's hard and all that. You're like, like a week from now I'm not even gonna be sore anymore. Right. You know what I mean? Like, you just go for it, and it's gonna be over soon. And then you experience that physically, and then it translates over mentally. Right. When stuff gets chaotic, and then you're like, I can just be steadfast. It's all good. Like, I've prepared myself for this. Yeah.
It's like I even with the physical stuff though, I will say it's not even enough, because I was doing it and it wasn't enough for me.
Sure.
It was at first, but I don't know if I got to a certain point or what, or just wasn't doing something right, but I needed more than that, and that's where I had to find my faith, and that's been a huge part.
100%.
Why I'm sitting here right now. Is why I'm sitting here right now.
Yeah.
So, but it's like, it's really, for me, it's mostly just about becoming stronger mentally. The body is just a secondary effect or something.
Yeah, sure.
I look what I look like. I don't really care what I look like. Sure. I mean, I kind of do to an extent, hear me, but
not necessarily the primary focus.
Right. Yeah. I'm more spiritually focused now, because I feel like that's why I was so gone. I mean, just egotistical, not humble, all about me. And, the Lord helped me realize that it's about everyone else. It's not about me at all.
Yeah. But I think that's a father thing too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like having kids,
bro.
You know what I mean?
And
like,
my journey has definitely been right there with my fatherhood. You know, when I became a father, that's really when it all started for me.
Yeah, 100%.
It's hard.
Yeah. No, and then you're like, it's funny because like the girls had a cold, and I'm like, I could care less if I get sick. I'm still getting in your face, still giving you kids. I mean, you just don't care. I mean, I won't say you become selfless, because it's not like it just happens, but I mean, it's certainly something you work on, but it definitely helps sort of correlate, when you do become a dad, and like, hey, I got people I got to take care of, and it's like, I was telling you earlier, like a guy I heard made a post, and it's like, hey, when you're 80 years old, you're probably going to fall.
Right.
Like, I mean, just as you age, you're probably going to trip and fall. Like, we just get clumsy. So is it a broken hip or is it a bruised hip? Yeah. Like, that's why I'm pushing myself physically. Like, yes, a great consequence is that I get to look like better and I'm in better shape and all of that. But it's bigger than that. And it's like what we're talking about, the mental toughness and discipline. And it's the longevity of, being able to last a long time physically. Right. And not just wither away because we're living in comfort and things like that nature.
You got to move it or lose it.
That's it. That's it.
But that's something that definitely stays on my mind, is like, I want to be able to do this until I can't move anymore, man. Yeah. And I'm afraid of not being able to move. So I'm going to use this thing hard, brother.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to because it's like I said, it's not about the body, it's about my mind.
Yeah.
And being strong in there.
Yeah.
And man, being a father has taught me so many lessons. Like, I mean, I say that, it's not like I've unpacked them all, but
Sure.
It's been fast.
Yeah.
And it really helps to have, in my words, an instruction manual, or in his words, a truth.
Yeah,
you
sure,
know,
sure.
the good book has helped me so much, just being in that. It just gives you all kinds of understandings and like reasons and explanations, I feel like, and it all makes too much sense. It's too applicable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
have so much faith in it. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I love it.
Well, and what's wild to me, and like me and another guy were talking about this, is it's like thousands of years old,
Yeah.
and it's still applicable.
Right.
It's still relevant.
Yeah.
Like, isn't that crazy?
It's
like
human nature, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and we were talking about like the golden rule. You know, like what's the greatest? The disciples ask, "What's the greatest of all the commandments?" And he's like, "Don't worry about that. Like, just love yourself, love your neighbor as you love
Yeah.
yourself, and everything will take care of you." And people know it's a golden rule, but I mean, it's biblical. You
Yeah.
know, and you're like, how profound does a mind have to be to come up with something that impenetrable?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like that one sentence
Yeah,
covers
man.
everything, you know? And it's the same thing. Like, yeah, I mean, it's talking about examples that are different. You know what I mean? Like the references are different, but
Yeah.
like the concepts are just timeless,
Right.
you know? And you're right. It's just like,
And it tells you how to love.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it tells
yeah.
you.
Do
word
these
for word.
things.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's simple. So if you just do it, I mean, it's just like getting up every day and moving your body, man.
Yeah.
Just do it. Don't even think about it.
Yeah.
Don't give that voice power.
Yeah.
It comes into my head every morning when
Yeah.
my alarm goes off
Yeah.
at 4:30. I
Like-
say, I'm not getting up.
yeah.
But I mean, after so many days and weeks of repetitive, like just doing it, it becomes, I hate to say easier because it's never easier,
Yeah,
but
sure.
like it definitely, like, it's a habit
Yeah.
so much where I'm half the time not even thinking. I just wake up, roll out,
Yeah,
and go.
yeah. But it's so important. I mean, and you know, you think about it in that context, like, I mean, obviously dying on a cross, he suffered.
Right.
But I think even outside of that, I mean, I think you could see this thing we're talking about played out in Jesus' life.
Yeah.
I mean,
100%.
you know, fasting.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going out into the desert for
Right.
40 days to be tempted.
Bro, he lived out of a tent.
Yeah.
Like, they traveled around and
Yeah.
lived in tents, man.
Yeah.
They're just walking everywhere.
And didn't have to. I mean, because
Yeah.
like, you know, I've heard it told the alabaster box that she broke, like that was worth a year's worth of salary.
Wow.
And like, you know, Lazarus, he rose from the dead, apparently was like a pretty wealthy guy,
Yeah.
like helping fund his ministry. And
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't have to do that, is what my
Right.
point is. Like, he could have lived a life of luxury too.
Right.
But
Wasn't about him.
yeah, exactly. And so
Even
I
though
just
it was.
think, like in all things, you know, he's the plumb line. You know, when we talk about
Yeah,
like comparing
100.
ourselves even to others, like spiritually, but then physically too. It's like I'm competing with myself,
Right.
you know? And you think like, what did he do?
Yeah.
Well, he suffered,
Right.
you know, because
Yeah.
obviously he knew way back then. Yeah, Andrew Huberman them just discovered that part of our brain
Right.
last year. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like he created it. He knew it was there,
Yeah.
and knew like as a person, even he had to like, hey, I got to be uncomfortable, got to be disciplined.
Right.
I've got to get up early and go pray.
Right.
I've got to go into the woods to fast. Like,
Because, I mean, he was in the flesh. He had the
Yeah.
same feelings we do.
That's
I
right.
guarantee it.
That's
I mean,
right.
he had to.
had to beat them back, no
Right.
different than we do.
Right.
And he could have got comfortable and all that too.
Right. And having that self-control is so huge, and it builds up just like suffering. So, like, if you're just sitting on the couch every day, not doing anything, you're overweight or whatever,
Yeah.
I mean, just get up and take one step. And I don't know. I forgot where I was going.
Well, I mean, what makes me think about when you say that is like something's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Do more than you did today than yesterday. You know, I mean, I haven't always been on this path.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's
Right.
easy to sit here and talk about like
Right,
this 12-mile hike
It's
and
everything
all this.
against me, bro.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But it's like I haven't always viewed the world this way.
Right.
You know, somebody was kind enough to put me on the path, you know,
Right.
and put people in my life to do that, you know, even
Yeah.
meeting you and like, just hearing through osmosis, because I remember like we first met, you're like, gotta suffer, and I'm just like, man, that's kind of intense. Like, that's great, but like, I don't know about all that, But then you just watch, you watch the fruit of someone's life and the stuff that comes from it, and then, through God's grace, again, you meet people, and I've gotten into CrossFit, and that's helped,
right?
And again, like even competing with yourself. I mean, like one of the workouts, the Open's 3 weeks in a row, and the second week I was just. Second week was great. The first week I was just so disappointed.
Right.
And I'm just like, I just didn't feel like, and then like a buddy of mine's like, I hear you, and obviously you always want to get better, but like, did you give it all?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, dude, I couldn't have given another ounce. Like, I mean, I was like,
that's so great,
pushing it as hard as I could, and it just wasn't good enough for what I thought I was going to do.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, you're competing against yourself.
Right.
I mean, you can literally like, sure, go train harder. Maybe next year it'll be better. That's great and all, but I don't know if you're putting the output
right. 100%.
or not. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going for it or not. And the days you don't want to, and it's like I was telling you earlier, like, I mean, even during workouts, CrossFit's a lot of like short, like 10, 12 minute, like AMRAPs and stuff like that. And it's like, I'll get off. It happened yesterday. I was at the gym yesterday, and it's like I get off the bike, and I was doing thrusters, and I absolutely hate them. And I had 12 reps, and I didn't want to do it. And I'm like, if I keep loafing enough, the clock's going to count out, So I'm like, taking breaths and breathing. And then mentally I'm like, 5, 4, 3, grab the bar, go. You know what I mean? Like, you have to mentally say, like, I'm counting down from 5. And that was taught to me by the guy that trains me. It's not like I just came up with that. But, like, because he's doing that to me.
Right.
When he sees me, like, he's like, all right, grab the bar in 5,
right.
4. You know what I mean? Like, you got to keep moving.
Right.
But the more you do that, mentally, the easier it is. Like,
right.
Hey, I can do anything for 6 more minutes.
Right.
Like, I'm going to be okay. I'm not going to die. A little bit of pain's okay. It's funny. I told somebody recently, I was jump roping, and it was like 150 reps, and like my calves are on fire. And the thought hits my brain, like, obviously, again, I don't want to injure myself, because then I'm not going to be able to work out.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to push so hard that I burn out to where I can't finish the workout.
Right.
But if those two things aren't happening, a little pain's not going to hurt anybody.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's okay to be uncomfortable and being in pain.
Yeah.
As long as it's not like, again, a permanent injury.
Right.
So, I don't know, but all that stuff's I'm learning. I'm on the journey.
Yeah.
It's not like you're born with it.
Yeah. I feel like people use pain as like bumper cars sometimes. They try and avoid it.
Sure.
Like the plague or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's different types. There's hurting yourself pain, or there's like putting pain on you, like pushing your body when you're hurting, you're running, and you're however far in, you reach that point and you think you don't have any more. Your mind's telling you that, but I promise you do. Like, there's more in you. You just can't listen to that pain.
Yeah.
I would venture to challenge yourself to make it hurt worse.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to get to the finish line and have stuff left in the gas tank. It's a horrible feeling. It's horrible.
You're like, oh, I gotta go redo that.
Golly, man, like, it's awful. So that's a memory of mine too, though, or something I keep on me is like, definitely. I gotta be careful the way I say this, because I'm not a proponent of beating my body up to the point, like you're saying, pain, but. Like in events or in a test, like we go do races. Yeah. And on that race day, I don't want to cross the finish line and be like, dang, I had more.
Yeah.
But it's a fine line to push yourself like that, and I feel like people are afraid of it.
Yeah. And like, do you think most of that for you came from the Marines?
Yeah, 100%. Like you said before, I think like there was no choice. It's not like like I quit on myself once in training, and it was horrible. All my buddies were like, "Oh man, he's weak," or whatever, and but it's so important to like look at these lessons from your past life. Everyone's been through it. I feel like, and you just have to sit down, and that's the point of like meditation and like spending time with the Lord is he'll like these things come out. But that could be suffering for somebody too, sitting down and meditating. I mean, because I know that's probably where I'm weaker. It's easy, or I don't, God, there's that word again. It is not as hard for me to get up and do these painful things like you're saying. And I think that's what the Marine Corps taught me. It was like, I've been through some really sucky situations where like this ain't that bad out here.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
People put so much stress on themselves and like just speed and like just slow it down and keep it simple.
Yeah.
I don't know, man, but definitely learned way more lessons. So many lessons I haven't even unpacked from the Marine Corps, dude.
Yeah. And how does somebody like, and I have some thoughts too, but like, because I feel like, again, it's not to sound like braggy or anything, because I wasn't there. I haven't been there until recently. But I feel like most people aren't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's like, practically, how does someone go do this stuff? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I would just say start small as possible. Like, I am not a big picture guy. Like, it kind of scares me. So I like to take the big picture and I'll break it down as small as I need to.
Sure.
Like, you know, so if you're overweight, that's the easy one. Again, just, man, whenever I started my journey, I'll just tell you what I did. I ran up and down my driveway. Like, Reagan and I, my wife, started out running like a mile a day.
Yeah.
It was really her. She helped me get on this journey and, or back on my journey. And we literally were too embarrassed to go anywhere. So we ran up and down our driveway. We'd run like, you know, so many times.
Yeah.
And, until we got to a point where we were like going out on the road then. And,
Sure.
Whatever, and I'm too. CrossFit's your thing. I don't even know what to call my thing.
Yeah.
But I do what works for me, and
That's
you
right.
do what works for
That's
you.
right. That's right.
And so I just think that they need to get up and do it.
Yeah.
Like, get up and do something.
Yeah.
Like, anything. Go on a walk.
Yeah.
Like, move your body.
Yeah, sure.
And the cool thing about CrossFit is, you know, if you're patient, if you just give 10, 15 minutes a day, in a couple years, you're going to be looking like a stud.
Yeah.
You know, if that's what you want.
Yeah, that's right.
But people are so impatient, I feel like.
Yeah.
So, and they want it now. Well, the same thing. They want it now, and they're not willing to just put in the work.
Yeah.
So
It's a microwave society.
Yeah.
When by design it's an oven.
Right.
Like,
Absolutely.
It's supposed to be an oven, not a microwave.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. Like, I'm not even worried about what I look like on the outside. It's really about my mental strength and what I look like mentally, spiritually. I'm so much more concerned about that. But
I feel like too, like, even like we were talking about earlier, like, why would somebody want to do this stuff we're talking about? I feel like woven into the fabric of the universe, you know, we being Christians believe by the Lord. I feel like there's a reward for all that. Does that make sense? Like, again, it's like we don't give to be given to. Like, that's not the heart by which we give financially. But there is a real principle of sowing and reaping. You know what I mean? And so it's like, I feel like there is a reward for those that are willing to put in the work and be disciplined. I mean, it's like I said, like, I mean, I had, for my family, for my business, for lots of like very important things on that hike, that first day, 6 miles, it took me 3 miles to get there mentally.
Right.
But like, once I was there, like, I have like 6 pages of notes in my journal. Like, I get to camp and I'm just like, I got to get it all out before I forget it, you know? But there was such important things, you know? And I'm not saying like that happens every time, but I felt like for me, it was like, there is a reward for being willing to be uncomfortable and push through. And some of that's like immediate, like what I'm describing, and some of it's like over the long haul. Like, for example, I recently mastered the rope climb. I don't know if I told you this or not, but like, so like I've got that skill down now. I mean, I can grab the rope and
that's awesome.
Pull myself to the ceiling, you know? I mean, I'm using my feet, you know, it's not just
that's
arms,
the best way to do it,
but still, like, you know, we did a Spartan race. I could not do the rope climb. I mean, I was arrogant about it. I'm like, I'll do CrossFit. Like, I can do a rope climb. It's basic. Now I'm taking the penalty lap. Like, I can't get up that rope, you know? But it took time. I mean, it takes time to get there. And I think the other thing too, like from a practical perspective, you started to talk about, like, for you, the physical is easier, but the just sitting down and being still is harder.
Right.
So like, that's an area for you of uncomfortability. So I think it's like, it's more about that part of our brain that we were talking about, like science has recently found that says when you do things that you don't like, it grows. That correlates with stronger discipline and willpower. I think it's finding things in your life that are that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like cold shower if you don't want to do a cold plunge.
Right.
Like that's an easy one because no one likes being freezing cold. Things like, hey, like I can't do any of this stuff.
Right.
Great, get out and walk for 30 minutes.
Right.
And if that's hard for you,
Right.
you're
That's
getting
fine.
better. You're
But-
growing.
Right. But that's the thing. It's going to grow. So you're going to have to
Yeah.
grow with it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, you can't
Yeah.
just keep walking 30 minutes
That's
a
right.
day. You know, eventually you're going to have to start running.
That's right.
But I just feel like for some reason my mind goes to preparedness, man. And like the Lord puts stuff in our lives, you know, that we're completely unaware of. And if you're not prepared to take that on whenever
Sure.
it comes up,
Yeah,
then,
yeah,
you know, then you don't grow.
Yeah.
And it's a choice.
Yeah.
You know, it's definitely a choice and an attitude, a mentality, however you want to say it.
Sure.
It's how you look at it. You can look at it as, oh, I got to go run. Or you can look at it like, man, I get to run today.
Yeah.
I have legs.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
There's
that's right.
people in wheelchairs. There's
Yeah.
people that have got their legs blown off right now.
Yeah.
And they can't walk.
Sure.
And they would take your legs from you just so that they could
Yeah,
walk.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, people just need to get out of their head, man.
Yeah.
And look around them, I guess. But you're blessed. We're
Yeah.
all very blessed.
100%.
Man. We're so blessed just being on this side of the world and being here.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, yeah.
get up and move your body. Man.
Yeah, yeah.
Stop taking it for granted.
Yeah.
Because it won't be there one day.
Yeah. No, and I think mentally too,
100.
you know,
Yeah.
same thing. Like, I mean, hey, like I get it. Life's hard. I mean, I've had a hard deal of chips or
Yeah.
cards or whatever you want
Right.
to call it through my life, you
But
know?
look at you now.
Yeah, but it's like, you know, again, a lot of people around me, mercy of the Lord, all that stuff. So I'm not taking credit, but I mean, there's certainly a level of like, you just got to be willing
Mm-hmm.
to just not be a victim and be disciplined about it. And, you know, now it's more physical. Again, that's what we've talked a lot about. But I mean, same thing's true. Again, it goes back to like not living on a roller coaster.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like the only way you're going to get to that point, or not the only way, but I guess a way to get to the point where you're not living life on this emotional roller coaster is by doing hard things,
Yeah.
intentionally putting your body and mind in places that are uncomfortable so that you grow through it.
Right.
You know, I mean, like silly examples like public speaking, you know, like for work. I mean, I remember like, it's funny, I'll pick on her, like one of the first times me and Reagan, because we worked together, you know, we went somewhere and she was like, I don't want to talk. Like, you know, will you do the talking? I'm like, heck no. Now that you've told me, you've got to. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Because the only way you're going to grow through it now, I mean, like it doesn't bug her a bit. I mean, that's been years ago, you
That's
know,
right.
but it's like, or it may still, but I mean, you get my point. Like doing things you don't want to do, you figure out like they're not as scary as what you think they are.
Right.
And even like what I was telling you earlier about like the hike, because we're doing this race in a little while. It's like 18 miles, and I'm nervous about it, you know, because it's farther than I've ever ran at one time, and it's 3,500 feet elevation, and you know we're doing it with you and another guy that's in really good shape, and I'm like, I just don't know, you know. But then I go this path, you know, and do the experience I had with, you know, hey, I hiked 12 miles with a 40-pound bag, like.
Right.
Okay, I can do this. You know what I mean? And so it's like every time you do push yourself, mentally you recognize like, oh, I got more in me than I realized.
Right.
You know, and again, the reward for that is you get to do harder things. And then honestly, like you were talking about community, I feel like you show up better
Right.
for those that are around you. And it's almost like you owe it to the people that are in your circle
Yeah.
to be this highest and best version of yourself.
Right.
I mean, because they need you. You know, everybody needs each other, you know?
Right. And it sounds like counterproductive or counterintuitive, whatever, but it's not selfish at all.
Yeah.
Like if you think about
Yeah.
it's really not, because it's the most selfless thing you could do is leading by example.
Sure.
Like you are making yourself the example.
Yeah.
And that's a weight to carry.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a weight to carry.
Yeah, for
brother.
sure. Yeah, for sure.
But it's so huge having people around you, man. It gives you some weird sense of drive where it's in us where I don't want to let you down, you don't want to let me down.
Yeah.
And not everybody realizes that either, because there's been people that have been a part of my teams in the past, and they're not willing. They're the victim. Woe is me. Oh, I can't carry this. Can you carry this for me?
Sure.
Well, I'm already carrying this, man. But like, if everybody carries their weight and puts in effort, then nobody has to work that hard.
That's right.
You know, and so I think like a we, not an I.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But,
For sure. Yeah. Oh man, this has been great. Anything else on your mind that you want to share?
I'll just go out with be a light for somebody.
Yeah.
You know, and get in the Word.
100%.
Find the truth.
Yeah. Set the example.
Set the example.
All right. Well, hey, I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us on the Do Life Well podcast, where we explore topics like fatherhood, business, health, wellness, and so much more. With each episode, we aim to inspire and guide you in embracing the art of doing life well. If you found value in today's conversation, please leave us a review, subscribe, and share with your friends. Until next time, continue the journey of doing life well.